Welcome to today's Homeowner with Danny Lipford. Expert advice on improving your home from the pages of today's Homeowner magazine and professional remodeler Danny Lipford.
If you've ever been house hunting, you know how difficult it is to find the perfect location and the perfect house. Well, that's the case with this home, in that the homeowners found the perfect location and basically a good floor plan, but they really disliked the exterior of the house. Well, on this week's show, we're taking a look at what we're doing to the exterior to improve it drastically. Not only here in the front, where we're adding an expanded foyer and dining room, but also around back, where we have some very awkward roof lines that have been added over the years, and we're correcting those with the new roofs that'll be built onto the existing roofs. And we're adding a significant size study on the rear under an existing roof, a very economical way of adding some square footage of living area to the house. We've got a good show. Stay with us. Well, you can see the workers are in the process of eliminating some of the old footings from the original porch to make way for the new footings that'll be dug and poured so that we can extend the dining room and the foyer here on the front of the house. Now, the owners of the house just recently purchased it, and they really were displeased with the exterior. Architecturally, it didn't blend into the neighborhood very well. It had a very bland look to the house, especially with the balcony that ran all the way across the front of the house. Really didn't look very good. Now, of course, we're about to do a big change on it, and you can see from the plans how different it'll look once the renovation to the exterior is complete. This is where the dining room will be added on. This is the new front porch roof cover and the extension of the foyer. And then architecturally, several accents will be added, including the little dormers or gables that are being added to the top of the windows, and also the new stucco finish on the upper part of the house will make a big difference as well. Now, before that stucco can take place or any of the other work can take place on the exterior, you can still see a lot of demolition has to take place, with the balcony being removed, and several of these windows and doors on the upper part will change, including the double door that'll be removed from the center of the house to make way for a fixed oval window. Also, we'll be installing a cement backer board to the existing siding, nailing all the way through the siding into the studs to give us a good backing for the synthetic stucco finish. Now, this is on the street side, and it will make a big difference in how it looks once we finish. But around the other side, situated on a golf course, we have a lot of work going on there as well. Another one of the things that the homeowners disliked about the house was this part of the house. Now, originally it had a large shade structure that occupied this area and allowed 3 cars to park under it. And that was constructed out of 6x6 cedar posts and several cedar beams on top of that. Now, it was not very attractive, it didn't serve much of a purpose, and it blocked the view from the playroom out to the golf course. Now, we'll be putting in quite a few more windows and doors on this wall to give some good natural light into there and good visibility, but also we'll be constructing a large porch in this area. It'll have a nice vaulted ceiling in it with an open gable to really let the light in. But most of the work being done here on the rear involves a lot of roof alteration. Now, this area will be a great looking place. What we'll be doing is actually taking this 3-foot wide balcony area and enlarging it all the way out to the roof edge. Now, the way it is now, it's almost unusable, but even though you have doors coming out, it's not enough room for any type of chairs or any kind of gathering at all. And with a great view of the pool and the golf course, it'll be nice to enlarge this. Of course, we'll be covering it with a roof, but that presents a particular problem, much as this particular part of the roof does. This is very ugly, it's not very functional because of it being such a lazy pitch. And what we'll do to correct that is actually match the pitch of this roof to cover the whole back area. Now, the way we'll do that is by extending the existing front plane of the roof up to a distance carrying the same pitch, and then let it run back down all the way to the roof edge. Of course, we'll be using the same shingles, again, the same pitch. It won't look like an addition at all by doing it this way. Now, to cover our balcony area, we'll be doing the same thing by extending the original upper ridge up a good ways, probably 6 or 7 feet, and then that roof line will continue down all the way out to the new edge that we've created by extending the balcony floor out. Now this may cost a couple $1,000s more than maybe a more conventional way of doing it by keeping it a flatter pitched roof, but it'll look so much better. It'll add to the attic ventilation within the upper part of the house as well as the lower part of the house, and more importantly than anything, it won't look like an addition. Now, one of the problems that we found during the demolition stage under us here, we had anticipated being able to use the framing that we have here and basically just build a little floor system out to support the new balcony floor. Well, this is very spongy, is not built very well at all. So we've got quite a bit of work to do to really beef this up to support this anticipated load. I'll show you how we're solving those problems. You know, it's always interesting to see some of the methods that other carpenters use. Well, the methods that were used on this floor system were fairly poor, and it presents quite a problem for us. You can see that the joist hangers were used in some of the areas, which is a great way to join a floor joist to a ledger like this, but you're supposed to use them every time. Anytime you have a situation like this where you're supporting a live load or a number of people may occupy the area above you, you always need to have something else other than just nails holding the wood to the ledger. That's always very important. Now, another problem is it appears that it's being supported just by this fascia board, which is a 1x6 or a 1x8. If that's all that's holding it, this is a very dangerous situation. Now, what we'll do to correct it is actually use a larger 2x10 to go from this wall out to the beam to support the new balcony that's being built. Now, when some framing is taking place, whether it's a wood deck or a balcony like this, you need to make sure that it's done the correct way. It can be a real catastrophe if any type of failure takes place when you have a lot of people up there. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Get ready to review your fix-it list as Danny and home repair pro Alan Lyle show you this week's simple solution.
Now, if you have a situation like this where you have a ceramic floor right outside your shower, sooner or later you're going to experience some stains in your grout. Now, I've seen all kinds of methods to correct this problem, from using bleach to actually taking an abrasive instrument and trying to scrape that stain off. We've got a much simpler way of doing it.
That's right, Danny. What we're going to do is actually color the grout. This is a grout colorant. It also will seal the grout, and it's very easy to use.
One of the first things you need to do when you're applying it is basically using some type of brush that you're able to just basically give it a real good cleaning, and then after that come back with a clean cloth and just try to clean it up and get all the dust off of the grout.
That's right. It may even take a mild acid wash because you want the surface very clean. We're ready to apply our grout colorant. We've got a good shake into everything, and let's apply. Now, you may actually want to pour this out a little bit, but let's just take a small dab. We'll start in the center, and we'll brush out, brush out.
And actually, if you get a little bit of it on the tile like we're doing there, it's okay. It can sit there for up to 2 hours, and you're able to come back with your clean rag and just actually wipe it off. Since the glazing on the ceramic is there, it gives you a little more time to work it, because once you start doing this grout process and grout staining, you need to continue over the entire floor.
Also, a good idea is if you're not quite certain if the color will be a good spot or good match, put it in an inconspicuous place first. The best place would be right behind your toilet.
Because that's one of the things you need to think about when you go select the grout coloring. There are so many different kinds of grout color out there. Make sure you take some kind of sample or some way to know exactly what type of material that you need. Now again, once you start, you need to continue. So I'm going to let Alan continue on this. I've got some other things I need to do. You know, when you have to move a lot of dirt like we're having to move here, it makes a lot of sense to use a machine like you just saw, a small front-end loader, commonly called a Bobcat. You know, many times in remodeling situations where we're building an addition on the rear of the house, our access is very limited to the rear yard. So we have to have the dirt dumped in the front yard and move it to the back. With using a small front end loader like this, it'll carry about 1/4 of a yard at a time, which makes it very efficient to fill up the slabs that we're pouring around back. And we're also, of course, pouring several slabs here in the front. And it's been a few days since we visited here, and the block mason's been able to complete all of their block work when we've been able to fill all of these slabs and compact it properly. Now, that's one of the most important aspects of pouring a slab like this, is making sure that you compact it good. And this is what we use, a plate compactor. It works great for that purpose, to vibrate and pack that dirt down. Now, a lot of times when you're putting in a good bit of dirt like this, it's good to put it in what we call lifts or layers. You put in 12 or 16 inches of dirt, compact that, put another 12 to 16 inches in, compact that, and that's the way you get your best compaction rate when you're doing a slab like this. Now, what we're basically waiting on now is the pre-treatment for the termites. Now, this particular type of slab requires 2 different treatments for the pre-treatment for termites, which one includes, prior to pouring the footings, we have a treatment, and then now that we've got it to this point, we have a treatment as well. Then they'll put the vapor barrier down, reinforcement wire, and we're ready to pour. Now, you may notice along the top of the blocks here, we have this little extra forming that we have. Now, the reason for this on this particular small porch area is to allow for a future brick roll-lock. Now, once the concrete's poured here, this will be removed. The bricks will be installed similar to this. Then we'll come back with a brick border or roll-lock that'll sit right on top of it. It'll have a little bit of an overhang here, and it'll have a little bit of a indentation of the slab. The slab will be down just a little bit, about 3/4 of an inch, to allow for the slate finished ceramic that'll be installed a little bit later. Now, one of the important aspects of anything on an outside porch like this is a good elevation going from the back to the front. In case water blows up on there during a rain, it'll flow off very easily. Now, around back, the framers are in the process of starting some of the roof alterations that we talked about earlier, and a little bit later in the show, we'll take a look at that. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
It's time to check out the Home Center for this week's best new product with Danny and today's Homeowner Magazine's Editor-in-Chief, Paul Spring.
Now, as a remodeler, I get a lot of questions about this flooring product. Tell us about it.
Sure, Danny, this is Pergo Professional. It's a plastic laminate. It's just like your countertops in a lot of ways, formed under high heat and pressure, makes a very durable, scratch-resistant, stain-resistant surface.
Now, it's not a new product, though.
Actually, it's not. This concept and the way it's put down was imported from Europe. In fact, this is a Swedish product. It's been around about 10-15 years. The way it works is a thin underlayment of foam, about 1/8 inch thick, is rolled out on the floor just to even things up. And then glue is spread on the edges of the tongues, and they're matched to the groove of the piece behind it. And once they're locked in and that glue dries, you have what's called a floating floor. You're actually not using fasteners in the field at all.
Okay, that looks great. With it being made as it is, it could really be used in a lot of the high traffic areas in the house.
This is a terrific floor to consider in almost any situation. It's quite thin, and as a result of it being thin, you can put it down over an old floor in a remodeling situation, which means you're not raising everything to a level where you're causing yourself a lot of work.
Okay, what about cost in a situation like this?
This is the professional product, which is actually made for commercial applications. It runs about $5 a foot, but there's one made more for residential that's $4 a foot, but this is the stuff to think about in those high traffic areas like foyers and where it's going to get a lot of abuse.
Well, that's great. That's less expensive than actual wood. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's been a few days and the framers are making some great progress on all the roof alterations on the rear of this house. Now, you can see behind me that most of the framing has been completed on this roof covering that covers the new balcony. Now, originally on the rear of the house, the overhang was very long. It must have been 4 to 5 feet long, which is very unusual, but apparently they did this originally to cover the small balcony that was here. Now, we came back and cut all of the rafter tails off to make for a good, consistent overhang all the way around the house. Now, when we were building the roof covering, we found that we kind of were lining up here with an air stack or a vent stack from the bathroom below. So we had to rush the plumber out so that it wouldn't hold up the framers to extend that over about 3 feet, a good safe distance away from the roof, so that when the overhang, the fascia and soffit was built, that it wouldn't interfere with the function of the vent stack. Then we were able to have the plumber install a lead jack on the end of it, keeping it a good safe distance away. Now down below here you can see how they've built a little diverter roof, kind of a lazy pitched roof that diverts the water away from the balcony. And on the side wall here we'll be putting some good flashing there before the stucco is applied to that wall. Now this is a time in the job, especially when you're walking these walk boards up along this eave, that it's really hot. Now outside it's about 90 degrees, direct sun, no clouds, and you've got about 140 degree temperature air pumping out of this attic, so it makes for some pretty tough working conditions here. Now the lower pitched roof that we had on the other side of the house that we had mentioned earlier really is changed quite a bit. Now actually the process here involved cutting a section of the roof out and extending the ridge up a bit to establish a new height on that ridge. Then we were able to extend the existing rafter tails up to that ridge, and that allowed us to put new rafters continuing all the way to the back edge of the roof, creating a good level or good even pitch over the entire section of this roof. Now after they were able to finish the rafters, they provide stabilization under it by putting some strong backs and what we call kickers to really stiffen the roof. Then they were able to deck it with the 1/2-inch CDX plywood. After that, the roofers came in and put down the building felt and installed all of the shingles. Now this is a very important aspect at this timing in the job to really dry everything in so that all of the interior work can progress real well. Now, right at the eave here, I was talking about the overhang, and you can see the framers are getting a good start here. They've installed a 2x2 against the beam that was installed to support the roof. And in order to put this on, they put a level here to really level this out to make sure that the fascia that's installed will be good and leveled. Now, a lot of older houses will have like tongue and groove or a beaded board. This particular house, it was built back in the 70s, had 3/8-inch AC fir plywood, and of course we're using that same material on all the overhangs so that it matches up. Here on the outside we've used a 2x6 subfascia that they've been able to nail directly into the rafter tails, and this gives a good material so that they can nail the 1x8 fascia board to this. So they're progressing along real good. Next, our Around the Yard segment.
Now for a bit of news from the great outdoors as Danny takes a look around the yard.
Have you ever been envious of a professionally planted flower bed? How evenly all the plants are spaced? Well, it's really not that hard, especially with a plant spacer. Now to make one, just simply cut a dowel rod or a piece of bamboo to the spacing length appropriate for what you're planting. Then move it along between all the plants as you're placing them in the ground. Now for most of the smaller annuals, such as the impatiens, 8 to 16 inches apart is perfect. Now larger plants, such as the sunflowers or black-eyed Susans, need a little more room between them. Now when you're planting the plants, be sure to check the nursery plant tags for the exact spacing that's required. Also, note the bloom time of the flowers and check the colors to make sure they all combined with your existing plants real well. In the garden, arrange the plants in a triangular pattern, which will result in a more natural appearance as they grow and spread in your flower beds. You know, with a simple plant spacer, you'll find it a lot faster and easier to get those professional results.